All right. So I am one of your moderators today. My name is Sarah Ring, and I am continuing education librarian at Minitex in digital initiatives. And our other moderator today is Kyle Triska. He'll be coming back around at the end to handle Q&A. He is resource sharing specialist for MinLink. And in Minnesota, MinLink is our statewide library discovery and interlibrary loan system. And on to our speakers. So our speakers today are Greta Bonneman. She is the metadata librarian for the Minnesota Digital Library. And she's joined by Nin Tran, who is our web and applications developer in information technology here at Minitex. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing and we'll let Nin here go ahead and bring up your slides.
Yep.
And thank you both for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you, and welcome everyone. My name's Greta Bonneman, and I'm going to start us off, and you are here for AI transcriptions for digital collections. So today's agenda, we are going to start off by, I'm going to share what is the Minnesota Digital Library in case you are not aware of that program. I'm going to tell you why transcripts matter. We're going to introduce ADA Title II. We're going to talk about the challenges of traditional transcripts and OCR transcripts. And then we're going to introduce you to Transcribe AI. We're going to show you how it works, and we're going to talk about getting transcripts into the Minnesota Digital Library. Nina's going to do a demo, and then we're going to discuss our results and observations. Should we be scared of using AI? And then some of our future plans, source code, and then, as Sarah mentioned, there will be time at the end for some questions and comments. Next. So for anyone who doesn't know what the Minnesota Digital Library is, it is a statewide aggregate digital collection. We have currently 213 contributing organizations who have shared their content with MDL. We have digitized that content and then shared it online at mindigital.org. We currently have 213 contributing organizations. They're all cultural heritage organizations like libraries, museums, historical societies, colleges, universities, etc. And our content.
Yep.
Okay, I'm sorry. Our content includes everything from photographs, maps, oral histories, letters, diaries, postcards, and much, much more. And we are a program of Minitex. So you may be wondering, why are transcripts so important? And there are two primary reasons why transcripts are important. They are integral to preserving the item's historical integrity. A lack of transcripts basically creates the risk that historical records will not be interpreted correctly, and accurate transcriptions can help preserve the item's cultural and educational value, and it helps to maintain context and the nuance of the document. It is critical for research and education. And think of cursive handwriting letters, that how much they are enhanced by transcripts. And secondly, transcripts are a key to accessibility, making materials searchable by both users and search engines. They enable discovery of content across diverse media types, and they enhance usability for assistive technologies like screen readers, and it is part of ADA Title II compliance. And I will talk about that a little bit on the next slide. So we are currently working to comply with ADA Title II. And that ADA Title II basically states that web content should be accessible by the end of April 2026. And if you want to read more about the WCAG, you can certainly look that up and read about it online. There's a lot of information about that. And just as a reminder, today there are over 1 billion people worldwide who live with some sort of disability, whether it's auditory, visual, speech, physical, cognitive, neurological, and that digital accessibility is all about making sure everyone can fully experience online spaces. So providing things like captions and transcripts are a key to that digital accessibility. Next, please. So, looking back historically, what are some of the challenges of our traditional transcripts? First of all, we have non-existent transcripts, things that are too complicated to OCR or create manually, things like city directories, building permits, calendars, weather diaries. They simply do not have transcripts because we do not have a way to easily deal with those challenges. And then we have incomplete and inaccurate transcripts. So some items have poor quality OCR. Using the OCR at Content DM, that uses the Abby Fine Reader. And it can fail to capture some of the nuances of the document. And then there are the inefficiency of manual transcriptions. They can be accurate, but resource intensive, think time and money. And manual transcripts are only as good as the person completing the work. So, and those and manual transcripts honestly have limited scalability for MDL's very large collection. So, and then you also have to remember there are pre-digital transcripts, things that were handwritten or typed documents that need to be digitized to be included in digital collections. Next slide. So here is a quick look at a transcript that is filled with problems. You will notice that you see the strange alphanumeric code at the top of the transcript. You will also notice that dates and names run together, and also look at the name Mr. Dewhurst, and you will see all those strange characters and diacriticals. And so something that it's not really informing the users of what they're actually seeing. So. And here's another example of transcripts that have problems where, again, you see a lot of these strange diacriticals that just they're not doing anything to help users understand what it is that they're actually looking at. So next slide. So now I'm going to turn things over to Nin, and he is going to introduce you to Transcribe AI, which is the solution to some of these problems.
Yes, awesome. Thank you, Greta. Well, with that being said, Transcribe AI built to tackle the challenges that Greta mentioned earlier from the previous slides. Accurately handles type, handwritten, mixed text documents, even with complex layouts where traditional OCR kind of struggles with. So it powers by large language models and guided by MDL's metadata to delivers a more richer context and higher accuracy. So on the next step here, I'm going to go through and do a live demo for you all. So on the left side here, I have the input folder that have 6 images from MDL. And then I also pull up the output folder, where all the transcripts going to live when they've done processing. So I'll go through, click on settings here to switch to Gemini just to test it out. So right now, I'm just adding in the input folder and the output folder. Click on transcribe. Then it'll go through, and as you can see, it will populate the transcript folder. And you'll also see it in your Transcribe AI app as well. You can right click on it to view the image. And I'll pull it up on a second here. Double click it to access the transcript. It's slightly small. There we go. Okay. As you can see, they have like different fonts. Usually normal OCR would struggle with this. And then I'll show the next one here. And I think this is one of the images that Greta was showing us earlier, where it was struggling with all the handwritten stuff. So you can see the dates are correct now. Mrs. Osborne, a lot of the so it'll keep, like, if it jumps down a second line, it will try to do that too within the transcript. So it tried to keep the context as intact as possible. Nice. Gonna open up next one. Oh, so this one is also kind of unique one where it has like that side text there. Um, and usually OCR, if you do it, it won't be able to capture it fully. It will just omit this whole section now, because it's like rotated a different way. But as you can see, it's captured right here, and then the rest of it looks really good. Um, so right now, Transcribe AI supports two LM models. We have the Gemini model and we have the Mistral model. So I'll just switch to that. Uh, and I'll just remove these images from our output folder. With Mistral, you can also do something called batch mode, where you can batch up all of your like hundreds of files and just send it to the Mistral server. And you can just click on transcribe again, and it will pull down all those images. So as you can see, very fast. Um, so I'll try to show a different image here. Oh, this one is really rough. I see I can't even read that. But yeah, I think from just skimming it, I think the AI did a pretty decent job at getting us started and then have a um, transcriber to review it. So that's kind of like having me walking through the workflow, I would say, of using Transcribe AI. And with that, I'll continue with my slides. Oh, and then here's one of the other examples. I have a very dense handwritten letter from the Masterson collection, courtesy of the Northwest Minnesota Historical Society. As you can see, not much to say. I feel like Transcribe I handled it beautifully. And here's another one that we saw earlier, and that Transcribe helped us fix. Um, so all the errors that Greta mentioned earlier doesn't appear here. So with that, how does Transcribe AI work? So I'll walk through each of these 6 steps. You don't have to remember these. I'll walk them through very in detail. Um, so for the first step, we download the images from MDL and run some pre-processing. So things like, sharpening the edges, boosting the contrast, any areas that is lighter in color, make it white, and then any areas that is darker in color, make it darker. Um, and this is so that we can make the text stand out more clearly. So it makes it easier for the LM to read and understand the content. And then next we pull in the documents metadata from MDL. So things like title, creator, description, date, all that good stuff. This extra context help guide the AI and improves the accuracy of the transcription immensely. And once we have all the metadata, we turn it into a simple set of instructions that give the AI, helpful context. So like what this document is about, how is it organized? Then earlier versions of this, we ran it with Gemini, but then soon we added the support of Mistral model. Um, but yeah, it is the reason why we choose these models is that it's just very cheap to run. It's reliable. They have like enterprise security, so our data won't get trained on. Super accessible. And in the next step, we extract the transcript generated and perform some human quality assurance. So if a document falls below a certain confidence level, we'll review it more closely. We also spot check the transcripts to make sure they meet our quality standards. We also try to adjust the prompts and rerun or leave it aside for human transcription. So once everything looks good, the transcripts are added back into MDL. Let me swing back to the demo real quick. I was trying to show, so right here, if you click on check quality, so that's where that step is. And then you can also remediate some of those errors that is running to. So if you hover over this, you can see that it detected there's uh, like machine generated code. So if you click on that, it will remediate, check quality again, it will pull in the new request. So it will fix all the machine generated text that the AI outputs. Um, okay, next slide. So then once we obtain the transcript, how do we get it back into MDL? So that's kind of like the issue that we run into earlier on. So for already uploaded content, we use a homegrown app that automates two things. So it scans content DM to identify records that are missing transcripts or have low quality transcripts. And then it helps us update the transcript field so that those items become more searchable and accessible in MDL. So without this, we would have to manually copy and paste in each transcripts. And for something like, Minnesota Digital Library would have hundreds of thousands of documents. That is not feasible. So the app helps us with that. And then for new content, it's super easy because transcripts are auto import during uploads. So when files shares the same name as the item, they just get pulled in as we upload them. And that brings us to the last step, publishing. At this step, we just need to index the collection, and then that would just update and verify the changes on our website. So on the right side there, you can see that's how the transcripts show up on Minnesota Digital Library. With that, I'll pass it back to Greta.
Thank you. So while we were, and when I say we, I really mean Nin. While Nin was creating the documents that actually do the transcription work, we realized that we needed to add a field to the MDL to the Minnesota Digital Library that would allow us to denote what was the source of the transcript. And so you can see here, I have added it to the list of fields in MDL, and the name of that field is transcript source. And then I created a controlled vocabulary, which has the values of AI, and then AI redo. If it's something that we need to go back and redo, we can tag it as such. And then manual, which means, of course, all the transcripts that we have done previously, where we have paid someone to do manual transcription work, and then also things that have been OCR. So doing that enabled us to really track our work within each individual item within MDL. So, okay, so that takes us to our next slide. So this is a really good time to both celebrate the fact that since December 2024, we have transcribed more than 95% of the text-based records in the MDL collections, which is really exciting. And because we will obviously then meet that deadline of ADA Title II, which we are very, very excited about. And this is also a good time for me to give a shout out to my Minitex colleagues who have been instrumental in helping to make this work happen, including my colleague Sarah Ring, Stephanie Hess, and Nin, of course, for all of his work in creating the tools that we needed to do this work. All right, so breaking it down, we want to talk about numbers. We want to talk about the speed of the work, the financial cost, and the human effort. And so on average, Transcribe AI processes 200 images in 1 minute, and it's about $1 for every 1,000 pages that we do via the Mistral batch. And we do retain human quality control. We want to go back and look at things that need to be redone. But then, of course, there was the developer time for Nin in terms of writing and maintaining the app and updating it. And he created many versions of this. As we discovered problems or issues, he was willing to always go back and rework the tool to help us deal with those issues in a timely way. And then, of course, it was my time and then my colleagues' time to do this work. But it was something we were really committed to doing. We wanted to make that deadline, and we felt that it was such an important enhancement to the user experience that we decided to make this a priority. All right, so our next slide here shows a comparison of how does human transcribers compare to AI, and you can see that the work there is there is a lot of similarities, but there are differences as well. And we have circled in red, and I hope you can see this, that the human transcriber has circled worth and noted that with a question mark as being an uncertain value. And the difference here is that Transcribe AI has gone ahead and guessed that it's not worth its Charles Street. And the difference here is that AI has guessed, and in this case, it has guessed incorrectly. And so much like everything in life, we want to really say this here is that there's a trade-off. You know, AI is faster and it is less work intensive. And there are a lot of benefits to doing it with AI, but at the same time, human transcribers are going to be careful. They're going to know when they don't know something, and they're going to put it a question mark in brackets and really call that out. So the upshot of the deal is that we want to be careful. And the next slide here shows the limitations of difficult content. And this is where when you ask AI to be careful or to flag content, it will give you almost a funny example here of the fact that almost every word is unsure because it's cursive handwriting, and AI doesn't always process that with 100% accuracy. So like we say, it's not perfect. So, okay, so now let's talk a little bit about some of our results and observations in terms of pros and cons. Transcribe AI does have high accuracy. The transcripts can be clean with minimal errors, and with some exceptions, I want to say. It does deal with diacritical marks in a better way than OCR does. It is very cost efficient. It is less expensive than human transcription tenfold, and it allows us to comply with ADA Title II. Some of the cons that we have noticed, there are minor errors, and sometimes we get inconsistent results, and sometimes we have to go back and redo something. And it can struggle with dense text, including handwritten text. And that when you look at this going back and forth, it is a very useful tool that obviously has some limitations. So, okay, so now going to our next slide, we want to take some time here and pause and say that no presentation about AI would be complete without addressing some of the larger ethical and societal concerns. Should we be scared of using AI? And it is true that AI can amplify existing bias. If your data set is biased, it's going to amplify that bias. There's obviously privacy concerns when you're talking about people and personal data and the misuse of data. There can be lack of transparency. There is often little clarity on how AI works, and the AI algorithms can be difficult to understand. And then, as a result, it can be difficult to hold people responsible for AI work. And there's always the erosion of human judgment. And then some larger fears about jobs and economic inequality, and data can be manipulated, and there can be misinformation. And always we must think about the risk of becoming over-dependent on AI. So how do we mitigate some of those fears? And in our experiences, we have viewed this as an opportunity to look at AI as a tool that we can use, but with very, very strict parameters of what we were doing. So I think any big AI project should think about creating some ethical guidelines regarding the use of AI. You want to establish a regulatory framework. You want to engage with ongoing research on AI and promote and foster education and awareness, and collaborate with other departments and organizations on their AI projects and learn from each other. And I think the number 7, I think you could argue, was probably the most important point here, is that you always want to ensure that's always ensure that humans are staying in the loop on a project, and don't let it get beyond the bounds of what it is that you're talking about. So, All right, I'm going to turn it over to Nen, and he is going to tell you some tips on getting started with your AI project.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, before starting, building anything with AI, feel like it's really helpful to really have a clear goal what you want to do. So for us, the goal is to, have more accessibility supporting ADA Title 2 by making, content more searchable, more readable. And then we have, and you have to ask yourself these questions to be able to validate these. So pressure test, or early on security, what happens when you upload data to a third party. So on our end, it's like Gemini and Mistral. Both of those we have enterprise protection, data protection on there. And then privacy, how do you handle information about, individuals, consent, whether partners needs to be approved of how, their materials are being processed, and environmental impact, being mindful of the cost of running these models on these servers. And these questions shapes the project decisions from day one, and not after you already, built the workflow, is what we like to think about it. Um, so some with that, we want to go over some overviews of accomplishments and what's next for us. So we built an app. So for some of our huge accomplishments, we built an app that lets MDL staff generate AI transcript independently. We also open source Transcribe AI and find a way to automate content DM updates. We also focus on improving quality of transcripts so that they're more uniform, more consistent. The workflow is more efficient and scalable for larger collections like this. For next steps, we continue to expand on to more audio and video transcription. And then we also want to do a second pass on some of those transcripts that were already done for those text-based one to make sure that the quality upholds. And we want to finalize the documentation and submit the final report. Um, and with that, so I mentioned that we open sourced the tool. So then right now you can download it at z.umen.edu/transcribe AI. And you can adapt it to your own workflow. Quick notes though, batteries are not included. So what that means is that you have to supply your own API keys. But we include some setup instructions in the link there to make that straightforward. It shouldn't take more than 5 minutes for you to run your first transcription. And then, yep, the link is z.umen.edu/transcribe AI. I assume Sarah or Kyle will send that link in the chat as well. With that, that concludes our presentation.
We welcome any questions or comments that you might have.
Thank you, Kyle and Greta. So I'm going to turn over to Kyle to manage the Q&A. We have some questions coming in, so go ahead,
Cool.
Kyle.
So we've got a few here to keep rolling in. First one from Karen. Is this tool strictly for textual items or can it provide descriptions of photographs?
Right now,
It
I'm sorry, Nate,
oh,
go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, it can provide exact text of what the image is about, but it also can provide a description of the image. What you need is, if you, I'm just gonna go back to the other screen where I was showing the app itself. So if you click on the settings app, there should be a prompt. So right now the prompt is says to extract the text exactly as it is from the image. You can change that to say like, give me a brief description of what this image is about, and it will do as it says. Well, to an extent, it will very be somewhat inconsistent in some of the things that it does. So every time that you click on transcribe, it will give you slightly different results just because it's a large language model is only guessing, rather than giving the absolute correct result. And hopefully that's answered your question.
Elizabeth asks, is it possible to use this tool with content that is not or not yet in a digital repository?
Hmm. Greta, you know the answer for that?
I would say no, because I mean, this is something that's, I mean, is it digitized? I guess that would be my first question. If it's something that has been digitized, you certainly probably could use this on that. It's designed for digitized text-based content in MDL, and there are certainly applications beyond that, but I don't know if it would really work if the content was not, well, I mean, it could work if it was just digitized, but you'd have to have some place to put those, both the images and the transcripts. So um, it could be work that you could do pre building a digital collection. You know, you could have that ready for when you have a digital collection.
Yep, all the tools doing, if you feed an image, it gives you text. If you think about it that way. So I guess you can just use your phone, take a picture of it too, and then upload the image up. It'll do the same thing that we were showing earlier.
All right. Danielle asks, where are you with oral transcriptions?
Oh, I think we're pretty far. I have an example of this in one of the other folders I have. So for audio oral transcriptions, we have it can also generate these subtitles files. Let me make that a bit bigger for you. So this is from a YouTube video that I pulled down and I just feed it into the model. Um, so then it could generate these blocks, and if you feed these into like YouTube, it will generate like those captions at the bottom of the videos there. But you can also generate, say, like a timestamp kind of situation right here. Um, so similar content, just different format. So definitely very doable, and it's also detects different speakers as well. So if you have like a podcast type of situation, it would, if you type in the name, it will like if you type the name in the audio prompt, it will detect like, hey, here's just this speaker, and then this is a different speaker. So it must be the other name that you provided. So it's pretty robust, I would say. And both we now right now we have supported for Gemini 2.5 Pro models and the Vauxhall Mini, which is very recent. I think it just came out um, earlier this month.
And I do want to add also too, a lot of our oral histories have transcripts that were created manually, and all of our both audio and video content is uploaded and stored in Kaltura, which is a way for us to save on our storage space. And Kaltura has a way to generate captions, which we could also improve using Transcribe AI for anything that say didn't have a transcript. So there's definitely ways in which we can approach that. And that is, in a sense, kind of our next phase, is dealing with the audio and video content that don't have transcripts. And there's a couple of different ways to approach it. So I hope that answers your question.
Our next question is from Mike. Do you run into any issues with Transcribe AI hallucinating text that actually isn't there?
Hallucinate, I wouldn't say so. Well, it would guess wrong, but I
Mhm.
don't think it ever makes up like a t whole different content, right, Greta?
I have not,
From what you've seen.
it's more the issue of like the street name where it guessed the wrong name. That is,
Mhm.
I think, more what is happening. We don't have it running wild, and I at least I have not seen that, because we have pretty strict parameters here where it's not just randomly making things up. So
Nadia asks, how steep is the learning curve? I'm assuming to use the app.
Oh, I mean, um, it took me like just a little bit of time to generate the 6 documents, um and the instructions in the page is very clear too, so you can just follow those. And maybe I'll add some screenshots to kind of like show what buttons to click on for the situation. But yeah, no, I feel like the UI I make it so that it's super simple. There's only a couple buttons you can do. Um, you know, you can add in your folders, and then literally hit on transcribe to run the process. So it wasn't much, but yeah, but I feel like the setup is gonna be a bit of learning curve, I would say, just because you have to obtain those keys and provide them in these areas right here. Um, but yeah, it should be
In as
pretty
a
straightforward, right, Greta?
yeah, I would chime in as somebody who was doing the work, and actually Sarah was one of the people doing the work that you have the tool installed on your computer and you have the instructions. And I even did some little notes on my instructions where something I wanted to add a little note for myself, just kind of edited the document. It's really just going through the steps of grabbing a collection by its alias and content EM, making the folders for the images and the transcripts, and just following it step by step. And it works exceedingly well. And it is not, I would say maybe it's not as difficult as maybe it looks. Sarah, I don't know if you want to chime in at all on your experiences working with the tool.
I'll just echo what Greta said. Nin spent maybe 20 minutes giving us a demo, sort of like what you saw today, and you know, with maybe some questions about here and there, some weirdnesses showing up. We were off and running, and we were really surprised how fast we were able to do this project. I mean, we thought that it would take months and months, and so
Yeah,
hope
I
that
mean, at
helps
the
at all.
beginning, I was worried we weren't going to make the deadline of the end of April, and here we are at the end, close to the end of February, and we are pretty much done with our first pass, and that gives us time to enhance and improve and go back and re-examine things that maybe need a little more attention. So don't be scared.
All right, the next question comes from David. He says, "This is my first time I'm hearing about Mistral. It looks like there are versions of Mistral that can be run locally rather than in an external, in the cloud. Does this tool work with that version or only cloud-based versions? What does it
Uh, Thank you. I would say right now is only working for the cloud-based version because we want something that's lightweight, like anyone can install. They don't have to have a, super dedicated computer to be able to run these models. Because you want to because my hope was to offload that kind of stress to the cloud-based services, and because I believe right now, Greta, Sarah, and Stephanie, you guys like usually do like have Transcribe AI running while you guys do your other work. So it wouldn't be feasible to be able to have it kind of like bog down your computer while you working on something else. So that was why we chose to go with this cloud-based route.
Next question comes from Kimberly. If you can say approximately how much has audio and video transcription been costing?
Mm, I think there's like a cost model on the Mistral page, but I think it's pretty reasonable too. And I think for Gemini, your first couple of a day is basically free. Um, so I would say not much at all. Definitely less than a paying a transcriber to do it. Um, but yeah. Hopefully that answer your question. I don't have the exact numbers, but I feel like if you search it up, they're pretty transparent about how much it costs per minute.
And you've only been using Mistral with audio and video?
Well, we could right now, Mistral, I find it better just because their model is more recent. But Gemini 3 and Gemini 3 Pro and Gemini 2.5 Pro is also really good. I think maybe Gemini 3 might be better. Um, but yeah.
Sarah asks, did you try different instructions in the prompt, i.e., you're a professional transcriber, in order to refine the results you were getting?
Uh, Yes, so we tried a couple of like prompts to begin with, and that's kind of like the one that we settled on just because it's provide the most consistent prompts or consistent results from those transcripts. And then, from these you can go in here and then you can change these to make sure that, if you want to go use a different one. So I'm gonna go with the other example here. Professional transcriber for the images provided. Um, just briefly describe what's in the image. So you can just save that, and as you run, it'll give you the like the alt text for the image if you want that, right? So definitely this is very plug and play. You can do your own thing if you want to, but if you just want to keep using the default prompt, you can just click on that and it'll go back to normal. And it also can do translation as well, something I want to mention. But we have no way to verify that's correct or not, because not I don't think me and Greta, we don't speak Norwegian or something, so we can't really verify some of the text that are outputs, but it looks pretty good.
Right? Yeah.
Well, that's the next two questions. They were asking, Liz asked, how does it do with non-English text?
Hmm.
And then Heather asked, um, can it do languages other than English? Can it do transliterated languages, such as Japanese?
Japanese, I haven't tried, but I think it does support Hindi, which is not like a Arabic style text. So absolutely. Yeah. Um, but yeah, no, right now we don't have any. I don't think in our collections, Greta, I don't think we have a lot of foreign language text either. So
But not nearly, I mean, it's very much in the minority. So, we have some Norwegian, we have the Dakota language, we have some Swedish, German, but it's not very much. And I see Stephanie has her hand up here. I don't know if she wanted to add something.
Yes, if I could just chime in really quick, because I've been working on this team as well to using Transcribe AI, and I just wanted to mention that I've run it on Yiddish printed materials, and as far as I could tell, like just scanning at the page versus the transcript, it did seem to capture the Yiddish letters. I've also run it on German and Norwegian and Dakota, which also the Dakota language books had a couple different different letters than you're not used to. So since we were kind of working for our deadline, we haven't gone through just to double check that it did actually transcribe these, letter by letter, word for word. But on a quick scan, I would say that it did a fairly good job. But again, this is kind of something we probably need to go back and review. But I was impressed actually with the Yiddish. It seemed to work through it just fine. So just wanted to chime in on that.
thank you, Stephanie. And then yeah, like for some of these items that are foreign language, I think we do mark those as AI redo, so we can spin back around and to be able to run that again or verify it. But yes, great question. Thank you.
Margaret asks, what is the format of the generated transcript? I think it was a text file when you're showing it, but can you specify the output type?
Yeah, right now, no. You cannot specify what type of documents you want it to output. Um, it will only generate .txt files. Just because, it's a language model and most of those are just outputting text, even though if it outputs like a file for you, it would just be a text wrapper or a file wrapped in text. So it will always be text in a way. Um, but you can also format yourself using Markdown if you really want to. So I guess if you talk about different format, I would say .md or Markdown files is another way to handle it. But right now we don't support that.
Derek asks, if you fed it scans of, say, financial ledgers, would it be able to format the tables in its transcription according to digital accessibility standards or the sports section of digitized newspapers, things like that? Does it handle
Um,
tables or anything?
yeah, for financial reports, I don't think so. I think there's our dedicated software out there. I think Google has something called Document AI, where it will scan uh the financial report and fill in what that form says in there. This one, it would not format it exactly as a financial report would do. Um, like it would try its best to kind of like put in these straight lines in, but it wouldn't, I don't think it would be formatted in a way that is usable for financial purposes.
Lauren asks, has the environmental impact energy use of this tool been measured? So the example of $1 per thousand images is in context of savings value.
I guess I don't understand the question.
Yeah.
Is that well, the $1 per thousand image is more of uh the the cost it would takes us to process that 1,000 um to be able to get 1,000 transcripts back. Oh, Lauren, was that your question?
Yeah, so I just wanted to like clarify like what I meant by that.
Mm,
So like I see that it's 1,000 per 1K images, which certainly on its head sounds like it's much cheaper than employing like a human transcriber. But when it comes to actually measuring how much of, environmental resources are used, if that's going to be a detriment to the community that, is in the place where the energy is being drawn from, like that's putting in context, right? Like, so yeah, you're saving, the employer saving this much, but what is that costing to other people and the environment itself? So has that been measured at all?
no.
Okay, thank you.
We don't deal with those numbers. All we looking at right now is making these documents more accessible for everyone. There are way smarter people than me that are working on these very important issues about environments and AI and data servers or data centers. So I would put my trust in them to make these better. And then really you can't really stop using it because um yeah, no, Greta,
I would just
any
add again,
concerns?
I mean, I think that's a really good question and it's something we should be thinking about. But I would also say when we're doing this, I have two monitors at home, as do my colleagues, and I'm doing this while I'm doing my other work. I'm working on a presentation or I'm working on, um, you know, MDL metadata issues, and this is running on the other screens. So in a sense, it's kind of running while I'm doing my normal work. I don't have to set a specific, another computer aside to do this. And I mean, I know that's not really answering your question precisely, but it's not taking so much energy that I'm not able to do my other work on the other monitor. I don't know if that helps at all. Um, so I don't know if you could say that this is part of just the day-to-day work of MDL or
Yeah, this just seems to be part of the trickier aspect of like
yeah.
answering those moral questions that you brought up earlier with any kind of AI. I just wondered if maybe this specific tool had been measured in any way, but that makes sense and I appreciate the information.
Yeah, well, it's good to bring it up, and that's something that Nin and I can certainly we can investigate that, and that's something we could add to our next version of this presentation. So
Yeah, and I feel like these are private companies too, like Google, Mistral, and even OpenAI. I don't think they're very transparent about some of these numbers that they're providing either. Um, so I think we're just gonna wait until there's a better system to measure these. But right now, for your question, Lauren, currently we do not.
All right, we have about two more questions, and that might be all we are able to get through here.
Hmm.
Uh, Merrick asks, are the costs for pure text different than the text with tables or images embedded?
Yes. So for I think Mistral models handle this a bit better. So what you call those tables or formatted text or annotated is what Mistral call them. So annotated transcripts. So I think those costs double of what like a normal just text transcript returns. Um, and by double is going to be $2 per 1,000 images. Um, but I think right now, we currently do not support that version of Mistral.
Right. And then the last question here is from Margaret again. How would you say that this tool compares to using Whisper AI to transcribe audio? Whisper AI is, of course, from OpenAI.
Yep.
At my institution, we are using Whisper in a homegrown system workflow for audio and video transcription.
Um, I wouldn't say there's any much difference just because I believe Whisper is more of a you run it locally on your server or slash computer. And again, we don't currently we just want a lightweight application so that MDL staff can run these for a lot of the collections, which is massive. Um, but I feel like I try Whisper, it's open source tool as well. But I feel like Mistral might got the upper hand. So I say if you're in doubt, give it a try. And I'm actually interested in what you find out.
And that's the last question. Sarah, do you want to take back over here?
Yeah, I just have one last thing to say to wrap up. Thanks everybody for all your questions. And this was one of the more question heavy sessions, so really appreciate it. Everybody seemed really engaged. Thank you. So the last thing I have to say is just thanks for joining us. We do have a link to some feedback, so we get all of our ideas, most of them from you, on what future topics or who to contact to talk for our series. So definitely interested in your feedback. I put a link in the recordings, and I know you can't click on this right now, but you'll get one more email from me, and I'll have all the links, including one to Greta and Nin's presentation. So with that, if everybody could just say one more thank you to Nin and Greta. Thank you both, and have a great day, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.